music. Get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, 7 p.m. in Niamey. Good evening and welcome to Newslink, live on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and worldwide at wadr.org. Here are the top stories. Patrice Talon wins the presidency of Benin's new Senate election.
I would like to assure you of my availability to working towards the smooth functioning of a state that is becoming more like a family.
Ghana's opposition NPP petitioned Supreme Court and Jubilee House, accusing Mahama's administration of undermining democracy.
So it means that the government does not even take serious the grave issues before us.
For bringing this petition, and I do assure you that it is going to get to the president.
The Gambia's press union raises concern over journalist safety ahead of December elections. An authority rescues over 300 victims from captivity in North Central Nigeria. Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Augustine Bill Coley.
Thank you for staying with us. We begin in Benin as former President Patrice Talon is now the head of the new Senate. He was appointed as president along with other officials who will lead the institution in accordance with the Constitution. The election was held earlier today, Thursday, in Porto Novo, following the Constitutional Court's approval of the Senate's internal regulations on August 3, clearing the way for the vote after the institution was officially installed on July 10th this year. Details with Veronica Njai.
Former President Patrice Talon will oversee the work of the upper house and ensure the smooth functioning of its activities. Talon made these statements shortly after the election.
I would like to assure you of my availability, indeed my commitment, to working towards the smooth functioning of a state that is becoming more like a family. For the past few days, we have all experienced an extraordinary atmosphere that has erased our differences. From now on, we will face the responsibility of working together harmoniously, collaboratively, like a family, like alliance, for the development and well-being of our country, particularly for strengthening national unity, for reinforcing the political stability of our country, and for strengthening peace and democracy.
Meanwhile, former National Assembly President Louis Valvenu was also elected Vice President of the Senate. He will support the Senate President and assume the role whenever the President is unable to perform his duties. Senators also elected Alassane Seydou as Rapporteur and Adijatu Matis as Deputy Rapporteur. The Senate Bureau is responsible for organizing and managing the institution's work. Under Article 113(5) of Benin's Constitution, the Senate's Bureau consists of a President, a Vice President, and a Rapporteur, each elected for a renewable 5-year term. With its leadership now in place, the Beninese Senate is fully equipped to begin carrying out its constitutional responsibilities as part of the country's bicameral parliament.
Veronica Njai with that report. Ghana's main opposition New Patriotic Party presented a petition to the Supreme Court and the presidency today, accusing the Mahama's administration of undermining the country's democracy through arbitrary arrests, intimidation of political opponents, and selective justice. During its demonstration, the party first marched to the Supreme Court, where it presented a petition expressing concerns about what it described as growing threats of judicial independence. It subsequently proceeded to the Jubilee House to deliver a second petition to the presidency. The petition was presented at the Jubilee House by Minority Leader Alexander Afenyo McCain at the end of the party's Democracy Under Attack demonstration. However, the presentation was initially delayed after the NPP party leaders argued it was disrespectful for the presidency to nominate only presidential staffer Nanan Yajantua to receive the petition, despite the presence of senior NPP officials, including the minority leader.
With great respect to you and without prejudice to your presence, to nominate only you to come amount to disrespecting us as a political party. I'm the leader of the party in parliament. You have the general secretary of the party here. You have the chief of staff of the flag bearer. We have the chairman of the Constitutional Affairs Committee of the party. Members of parliament and the leadership of parliament are all here. But to disrespect our democracy by only nominating you to come, it doesn't match it. So it means that the government does not even take serious the grave issues before us.
For bringing this petition, and I do assure you that it is going to get to the president, and this is democracy at hand. If the MPP today has been able to come to the Flagstaff House to present their petition, then I'm saying that democracy is at its utmost. Everybody knows what today is. Today is the day of memorial for the 8 gallant heroes who fell. And I'm happy that honorable leader is saying that I am a nobody. But I want to assure you that I'm a senior member of government, and this petition will directly get to the president. And they should also remember that in this country there are laws. There are laws that is put together to help us regulate our lives and our being. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
That was a highlight of NPP presenting its petition at the Jubilee House after its nationwide protest today. The Gambia Press Union is raising concern over the safety and protection of journalists amid online harassment, misinformation, and the risks associated with election reporting. As the Gambia prepares for the 2026 general election, the union says journalists have a critical role to play in ensuring citizens receive accurate and timely information during the electoral process. It maintains that journalists' ability to perform this responsibility depends on a safe environment for independent reporting. From Banjul, Rose Samarakate's report.
The Gambia Press Union says although journalists in the country have not experienced a recent physical attack, online harassment remains a major concern, particularly for those reporting on politics and governance issues. However, the union reveals that it is working with partners to prepare journalists for possible challenges ahead of the 2026 elections through safety and security initiatives. Modu S. Juice is the union's Secretary General.
So we've been engaging both political parties and as well as security agencies, especially the police and the army, on the safety of journalists. We had these meetings last week and week before last, both with politicians and security forces, because most of the attacks, especially physical attacks that we record on journalists, are coming from either political party supporters or the police.
The Gambia Press Union also expresses concerns about the growing rate of misinformation and harmful online content. To address this situation, the union is engaging social media influencers and digital content creators to ensure responsible online communication, reduce hate speech, and promote peaceful public discussions during the election period.
For some social media influencers, we would invite them to training, and even though we don't consider them as journalists, but we train them on the code of conduct for journalists, for them to know on what kind of information they can share. But also we intend to do some trainings for them on identifying hate speech and tackling hate speech, as well as identifying misinformation and disinformation, and how to tackle misinformation and disinformation. Because these are influential people, and they could be used as a vehicle, to spread hate speech, incite violence, and spread misinformation and disinformation.
As the country moves closer to the 2026 polls, the Gambia Press Union says it will continue advocating for the rights and safety of journalists while working with stakeholders to promote a peaceful and transparent electoral environment. For WADR, Rose Samarakates, Banjul.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, elsewhere in Nigeria, security authorities have rescued 308 kidnapped victims from captivity in Kwara and Niger states, north central of the country. The latest rescue effort marks one of the largest hostage rescue missions recorded in recent months. It follows a joint security operation coordinated by the Office of the National Security Advisor. Usma Umar completes the story.
The operation involved personnel of the Nigerian Armed Forces, the Department of State Services (DSS), the National Counter-Terrorism Center under Office of the National Security Advisor, the Nigeria Police Force, and other security agencies working on intelligence gathered over time. Security sources say 163 of the victims were rescued after being abducted from Woro community in Kiama local government area of Kwara State, while another 145 were freed during coordinated operations in neighboring Niger State. The rescued victims have been evacuated to the military medical facility at Wawa community in New Busa, Niger State, where they are receiving medical attention, documentation, and other humanitarian support before being reunited with their families. Officials say the operation highlights growing interagency collaboration in tackling kidnapping and other organized crimes, adding that intelligence obtained during the rescue will support follow-up operations to track down those responsible for the abductions. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Well, let's take you to Niger, where the authorities have recovered more than 74 billion CFA francs in alleged misappropriated public funds. The Commission for the Fight Against Economic and Financial, including Tax Crimes, CODEF, presented an update on these activities during a meeting with President Abdurrahman Chiani in Niamey. Speaking to reporters following the meeting, CODEF President Colonel Zeno Agal Musa outlined the Commission's latest recoveries and the way forward.
We were indeed received by His Excellency the President of the Republic, Head of State, together with members of the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, CNSP, with the aim of presenting the recoveries made by CODEF, as well as the institution's activities and the difficulties it has encountered in carrying out its mission. You may recall that during our previous briefing with the Head of State, we announced recoveries of around 63 billion CFA francs. Today, that figure stands at just over 74 billion CFA francs, representing an additional 12 billion CFA francs recovered over approximately 11 to 12 months. The 12 billion CFA francs represents cash received. It does not include shares or real estate assets. It is entirely cash. As for the instructions we received, there are always instructions. The directive is to continue with determination and commitment our mission of recovering state assets that have been dissipated, while carrying out our work with respect, but also remaining firm with those implicated.
Dans le respect, mais tout en restant ferme avec les mis en cause.
That was CODEF President Colonel Zeno Agal Musa in Niger. A new Afrobarometer flagship report shows that why most Africans support free movement across borders for trade and work, many remain wary of increased immigration into their own countries. The survey also found growing interest in immigration, especially among young people seeking better economic opportunities. Nadia tells us more.
The latest Afrobarometer survey suggests Africans are sending mixed signals on migration. On one hand, most support the free movement of people across African borders to boost trade and employment. On the other hand, many would prefer their governments to admit fewer foreign job seekers and refugees. The report, based on interviews with more than 50,000 people in 38 countries, found that although most respondents are comfortable living alongside immigrants, they remain divided on whether immigration benefits their country's economy. It also found that wealthier, more educated and highly skilled Africans are the least supportive of admitting more immigrants. Josephine Sani is a director of communications at Afrobarometer.
On average, we have a modest majority, which is just about 56%, who are saying that they're okay. They favor the idea of having people move freely within the sub-region to work. But we have 40% who are saying that, no, their government should actually limit this kind of free movement so that it protects the citizens' access to jobs and opportunities.
At the same time, the survey shows that nearly half of Africans have considered leaving their own countries, with economic opportunity and hardship cited as the main reasons. The desire to emigrate is strongest among young people, the educated and West Africans, with Europe and North America topping the list of preferred destinations. Josephine Sani again.
In 20 out of these 31 countries, we saw significant increases, led by Ghana and Gambia. In these two countries, the intention to migrate a lot has increased by 24 percentage points.
Afrobarometer says the findings highlights the challenge facing African governments as they pursue regional integration under initiatives such as the African Continental Free Trade Area, while addressing citizens' concerns over jobs, economic opportunities, and migration. For WADR, Nadi Tete, Accra.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Patrice Talon wins the presidency of Benin's new Senate election. Ghana's opposition NPP petitions the Supreme Court and Jubilee House, accusing Mahama's administration of undermining democracy. The Gambia Press Union raises concern over journalists' safety ahead of December elections. Authority rescues over 300 victims from captivity in north-central Nigeria. Still ahead in the news, we have the guest interview and the sports news. Please stay with us.
Connecting Ghana to West Africa, this is Nadi Tete in Accra, and you're listening to WADR 94.9 FM, Dakar.
Thank you for being with us. We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR News and on Facebook, WADR English Service. In Guinea, concerns are mounting among victims and witnesses of the September 28, 2009 Stadium Massacre trial. The fears have grown after Colonel Bienvenu Lama, once the main accused in the deadly crackdown that killed more than 150 people in Conakry, was acquitted and then promoted. After months of proceedings, Lama was cleared of charges. Just days later, he was elevated and promoted to the rank of Brigadier General. Now, survivors and witnesses are calling on the Ministry of Justice to step up protection measures, saying their safety must be guaranteed as the trial enters its next phase. Elsewhere in Liberia, the government has scrapped registration fees in public primary schools through a system of direct grants to schools. The years for the cost of registration and other school-related fees has kept thousands of Liberian children out of classrooms, despite the country's policy on free basic education. Our correspondent Ibrahim Parker reports.
Announcing the new policy, Education Minister Dr. Jasso Jala said the government will now cover registration fees for all pupils in public primary schools nationwide.
This school year, if a child is in public school, in primary school, no student will be required to pay registration fees. Parents, we're asking you, take the children to school. If there is any school that is asking you, public school, to pay registration fees, report that to the Ministry of Education.
Beyond easing the financial burden on families, Jala unveiled a broader package of education reforms to improve learning outcomes in Liberia. Also, a total of 1,000 qualified volunteer teachers will be captured on the government's payroll under the 2026 national budget.
If you do not have an operational permit, you are not allowed to open. We've just launched 160 M&E interns that will be boots on the ground to support us with this endeavor to ensure that schools who are operating have permits.
Education experts have welcomed the initiative, but caution that its success will depend on sustained funding and effective implementation. For many Liberian families, however, the refund is more than a policy shift. It offers a renewed hope for a future where no child is left behind. For Newslink on WADR, April Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Our guest this evening is John Rogers, Director General of Sierra Leone Disaster Management Agency. In this interview, he speaks about measures being taken after the recent flooding left at least 4 people dead and thousands of residents displaced in the capital, Freetown. However, the meteorological agency is warning of more heavy rainfall in the days ahead. John Rogers says emergency response teams remain on the ground to support hundreds of residents. Please listen.
We had inclement weather. We had too much downpour of rain. Of course, we had a weather forecast from the ECOWAS Situation Room, the African Union Situation Room, and from the Sierra Leone Meteorological Agency, telling us of inclement weather that we are going to have heavy downpour of rain. Indeed, there was a heavy downpour of rain that resulted to flooding in some communities in Freetown and around Freetown. The rainfall lasted for a period of 6 to 7 hours and made some areas become inundated. That resulted to flooding. Some of the areas that were impacted, some of them were marshy lands where people had actually gone and constructed buildings where they were not supposed to have constructed buildings. And because of that, when we had a heavy downpour of rain, those areas became flooded. Areas like a place called Porto at the back of the part of the city. There's a second place which is around the western part of the city that is referred to as Meshkem. There is a third place that stretches at the back of Freetown Supermarket, coming down as far as Kokri, where you have the army headquarters. All of the back of those areas were heavily inundated by heavy downpour of rain.
Your office, through the ECOWAS Situation Room, had access to early warnings about the risk of severe flooding, as you stated. Given that climate projections indicate West Africa will continue to experience heavier rainfall, what measures has the government put in place to reduce the impact of floods and strengthen preparedness?
The National Disaster Management Agency has responsibility of ensuring that we are able to prevent, to mitigate, to respond, and to recover from those kinds of disaster events. So because of that, we are able to jack up our structure in terms of response mechanism. We are in the field. We are making sure that we are able to help the people that were impacted by the rain, by the flood. Where I had just made mention about 300 houses were impacted by that particular flood at Porto, at the back of Juba Hills. And the people were displaced, temporarily displaced. Of course, it was not a permanent displacement. They had cause to leave their settlement. They went out. There are other areas where the flood waters became very high and the velocity, the speed with which it was moving was very high. Some people were swept away by the flood waters, but we were able to help them out by making sure that we were able to do rescue operation and they were able to join their families. Indeed, 4 people died as a result of that particular event, and we were able to make sure that we took the corpse to the mortuary for preservation and for medical attention.
For communities already affected, particularly where more than 300 homes have been damaged, are there plans for temporary shelter, including food assistance and other humanitarian support for displaced families?
We have 2 plans. The first one is the flood mitigation strategy and plan, and the second one is the flood preparedness and response plan. Those plans have been activated. Our national situation is activated. Our colleagues are at work. We are having coordination at the strategic, the operational, and the tactical level. We are collecting data. The moment we finish analyzing the data, we will know clearly the needs of the population in terms of food, in terms of shelter, in terms of protection, in terms of medical, etc., etc. So these are things that we are doing simultaneously.
Flooding often increases the risk of water contamination and outbreaks of diseases such as cholera. What steps are authorities taking to protect public health, ensure safe water supplies, and prevent possible disease outbreaks in Sierra Leone?
Yeah, some boreholes were actually impacted, especially in the Porto area. Boreholes were impacted, about 10 to 18 boreholes were impacted. We are working together with the Ministry of Health and Sanitation. We are working together with the water sector to ensure that those boreholes are chlorinated and people are supposed to have decent, clean water. Because at the end of the day, if that is not done, then we are going to have outbreaks. And these are major challenges that we'll face if we are not able to manage them properly. And that is why we are very careful as an agency.
John Rogers is the Director General of the Sierra Leone Disaster Management Agency. And Now in sports, Malawi booked their place in the quarterfinals of the Total Energies CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2026, despite suffering a 2-1 defeat to Zambia in their final Group C match on Wednesday evening. The Scorchers advanced on goals scored in head-to-head games after a dramatic conclusion to the group, finishing top of the standings ahead of defending champions Nigeria, who defeated Egypt 4-2 in the other Group C fixture. The final whistle confirmed the Scorchers' progression despite the loss, while the Copper Queens see their Total's CAF WAFCON Morocco 2026 campaign came to an unfortunate end. And in athletics, some of the world's leading athletes will compete at the Lausanne Diamond League in Switzerland on August 21. Olympic champion Emmanuel Wayani of Kenya will headline the men's 800 meters, facing Canada's Michael Arup and American Brandon Miller in one of the event's most anticipated races. In the women's 200 meters, Jamaica's Shericka Jackson will be aiming for her third Diamond League victory of the season as she continues her push for a place in the Diamond League final in Brussels next month. That's the latest in the world of sports. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. Many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maudo Ju for the technical support. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, including X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. I am Augustine Curley. Good evening.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverside County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.